Republican leader Senator Everett M. Dirksen said the shooting was a disaster of national proportions and said it emphasizes the lawlessness which grips the nation, which leads us, of course, to the fact that the Senate and the House still refuse to pass adequate rifle and gun control bills that would perhaps keep them out of the hands of men like the one who shot and attempted to kill Senator Kennedy this morning.
I'm glad you made that remark. That was an editorial remark, but I would like to have made it myself too. The permissiveness which allows all this violence to go on and in many cases permits it. No nation on earth allows people to buy guns as easily and to have access to murder weapons as easily as this nation does, and it would seem extremely easy to stop it. They say that we actually have a disaster form of government. Congress only functions after a disaster has happened, and that's generally proved true in depressions and wars. They don't take much action to avoid the depressions of the wars, but they act after them. However, we had a disaster 5 years ago when a president was shot with a mail-order weapon by a madman, and if there was ever a time, a disaster to prompt Congress to act, that was it, and they didn't do it.
And we wonder, Howard, whether they will do it after tonight's event.
I frankly doubt that they will do
it.
There's
a powerful lobby.
The lobby is so mighty, and there's such a want of strength of character in so many people in an election year that you just wonder whether they will do anything and just let people, mad people, go on getting these weapons. Well, I'd better stop editorializing. I think we're going to show the pictures of what happened tonight in just a moment.
Invisible men who run this report for us have told me through this earpiece that I should make some editorial remarks, so I shall try to do so. If governments were known by what makes them work, ours would be called a disaster form of government because that's what makes it work. After a depression is broken out, we take action, but Congress never does take action to prevent a depression. After a war is broken out, we take action, but we can't take action to prevent it. We had a disaster about 5 years ago, November the 22nd, 1963. The president was assassinated by a mail-order weapon. Ever since then, the present president, and some of the members of Congress have been trying to pass a law to make it harder for madmen to get their hands on weapons. In this country, it's easier than in any country in the world for everybody to get a weapon. Governor Romney of Michigan some time ago said that the arsenals that both Negroes and whites have been piling up in their homes since the troubles in Detroit last year are just frightening. And I suggest that if Congress does not now, at long last, after the murder of President Kennedy, after the murder of Martin Luther King, after an attempt to murder Senator Kennedy, after a situation in the nation where a president of the United States, the present one, can't go out and make a speech in public because he may be attacked, may be assassinated, to retire from politics because it's impossible to campaign. I think after that it's safe to say there's going to be a reaction against that kind of thing in this nation. And as President Johnson once said, a rebellion against crime and things like this. And it had better come soon. Thank you.
Howard, I recall what the statement issued by the president just a couple of weeks ago at the time of the gun control bill passage through the Congress, where, as you know, the thing was practically emasculated. And I believe his statement contained the words, "How much more anguish must America endure from the sale of mail-order rifles?" Well, now, this was not a mail-order rifle, but nevertheless, the fact remains that
it's awfully easy in this country to get them.
There's just no difficulty about walking in and getting a gun and then moving into a position. And in our political life, with the free and open movement of candidates, as they wish it to be and as it ought to be, why, it's almost impossible to prevent some madman or just some bad man from getting into a position where he can do something. What we can do, of course, is somehow make it impossible, or at least more difficult, for him to obtain the weapon of his destruction. But that has not happened, and I wonder, as the president, as everybody else must wonder, how much more anguish must America endure, and this one family endure, before finally the sense of urgency, which should have been created a long, long time ago, obtains in the Congress, and we recognize that hunting is a legitimate sport, but killing is not. And that somehow or other,
You know
We
that
moved to put a stop to this.
in the last days of the Oregon campaign, he got into a battle with his audience, but he stood firm on that point. There should be a gun law. And with his audience, that particular audience, it was very unpopular. That audience is represented by one of the most powerful lobbies in the United States, with offices in Washington, which prevents action being taken to prevent things like this.
And it is done on the basis of protecting the right to keep and bear arms and a sort of sportsman's approach to it. You know, that everybody has the right to go out hunting. Well, I suppose there's nothing wrong with that. But certainly nobody has a right to be able to purchase a gun and to then move into a position to inflict a tragedy like this. You know, I believe in the state of New Jersey, where a gun control law was passed, they discovered an astonishing percentage of those who did apply for the purchase of guns after the passage of the law were either drug addicts or had a previous record of mental instability. And that really is all that the administration and that those who believe in a federal gun law and a mail order gun control law are trying to prevent. From putting these things into the hands of people who are unstable.
Well, it's been suggested we differentiate between pistol and rifle laws, but I think that there ought to be great restrictions on both of them, and people ought to pass all kinds of tests to get them.
Well, the president was killed by a mail order rifle. Senator Kennedy has been shot now by a handgun.